Okay, and I just wanted to let you know what series I am getting ready to start tomorrow, August 1st. And these are all the layouts from last year, so don't think you guys are getting sneak peeks. So I just really wanted to quickly explain that during the month of August for the last, well, 2 years ago, and this will be the 3rd year, I have been doing something called 31 Days of Cut Files. Now, cut files are what seems to be something new in the scrapbooking world, where you take an SVG file, which is a digital download per se, you put it into your electronic cutting machine, which is a Silhouette, a Cricut, those are the only two I can think of at the moment, and you size it the way you want it, and then you cut it out and use it on your page. And a lot of people ask, how do you use a cut file? What are some ideas about cut files? And I just wanted to go through all the layouts. Well, these aren't all the layouts. I have to tell you guys that it was really hard. When I create a layout and I'm done taking photos for my videos, they go back into the albums. And so trying to find all of these from last year, oh, you should see behind me and how many books I have pulled out just to show you guys all this stuff. So I did not pull out every single one of them, but I wanted to share with you guys some of the ideas that were put out there for last year's 31 days, just using cut files. Also too, I had a couple gals playing along with me, so there's a playlist that's going to be down below, and then also down below is going to be the new playlist, but you won't see any videos in there yet until tomorrow. So just in case you guys are watching this, you know, a day or two late, the playlist is not active for this year's right now, but last year's playlist is available. So, and I believe there's like 67 videos in there for you guys to go watch, at least binge watched, so you get an idea of what 31 Days is about. So here's a cut file where I used it to help me decorate, and you know, it's just a little it's just a little funny layout of my husband who comes home, and while I'm cooking dinner, or while me and the kids are cooking dinner, he just has a beer to wind down from the day. And so it's just kind of one of those where he feels like he's pulled in all different directions. So that's where the arrows come in place. Some days are tough. Big mood, start right here, which is pointing to the beer. Everything is fine. Sorry. So anyways, it's just a bunch of, you know, like it just has that mood and feel of how he feels when he comes home from work. So just doing that, and I don't want to talk about every single one of them. Here I used a cut file just to help me embellish. So it's not really the star of the show, but it's behind. So instead of using mixed media, they have a lot of background cut files that you could use in place of using a stencil with white paste. So that's another little thing. And I like to do several different sizes of pages. So those were 6 by 8 pages. Just to tell a little story, and then a little bit bigger story, like these are the prices of fuel back in 2020, and I filled the clouds with cotton balls. I just took cotton balls and tore them apart and added glue and smushed them into the glue. Nothing big, nothing fancy going on here, just cotton balls, okay? So I did that. This one here, I used my stencil. Well, I knew that I needed to color the stencil, but while I was coloring it, I took these 2 pieces of paper. Actually, no, that is the paper. I thought I had used something, scraps, but I put my black paper down and and inked my cut file and used it as my background as well. So I used it in 2 different spots, and then I ended up cutting up my cut file and just using it, even though it was meant to be cut out really, really big and be a background. I shrunk it down and made it really small and used it as a stencil and then as part of my embellishments. So I've got that. Here I used just the cut file as my main decoration, which is normally what some people do, but I took the inserts of these stars and I colored them and put them back into the cut file instead of having it completely open. So I have that one going on. This one here was a 2-page layout where I spanned the cut file. So this was just one whole cut file, and I took it and cut it so I could have it going across a 2-page layout. So it was the entire back. But this was just one 12 by 12 or, well, 11 by 11 cut file. And I just took it and cut it strategically so I could put it on this side of my photos and that side of my photos, and made it look like it was a huge giant cut file, even though it was not. So we are Marvel fans. I love any excuse to do a Marvel layout. This one here, I did a treatment to the inside of the letters. So the cut file itself was just explore more, but I love saving the negatives and showing you guys what you can do with the negatives. And I just took a wood grain stencil and pasted it up and then inked it, inked it with a blender brush and then popped it back on into itself. So that way I was able to have a more interesting cut file instead of backing the cut file and it being really, really flat. So there is that. This one's almost the same exact thing, only I backed the original cut file. And then I did another treatment. I just took some paste and used my finger to dab it up so that way I got these really cool highs and lows. Do you see that? Really cool highs and lows in there to make it look like the tread was it's dirty tread, right? And then of course I popped it up to give it that tread depth. And then I added to it. So I instead of just the word hike, I said hike more. So I added to my cut file because that's, it's okay to do that. You don't have to just use the cut file. Here I used the cut file to represent the cabin that we are staying at, even though it's a little kid's playhouse. And then I used it as the base of my title. And I just backed it in mulberry paper. So that way it was not prominent, but yet you can still see it. And I can still see the wood grain going through. But I didn't want it to disappear in this wood grain, but I did still want it to look like a cabin with that wood grain, so I just used mulberry paper. This one here, I just used it to support my title, which, oh, it's falling down. Yay! Sometimes I forget to glue, even though in the video I told you guys I was going to glue it. Sometimes I forget to do that. But I used it to wrap my title around, and it just says I love going everywhere with my family. And then I got pictures of my kids standing next to a couple trees. But that's all that is. And then of course to support the globe, I used a world map of some sort from a paper pad. Okay. Here I did the exact same thing. I put the negative back in, but actually I did not. Now that I'm looking at it, I realize I did not. So what I did was I took a piece of yellow paper and I used, I think I used a stencil. No, I used a stamp. I used a tone-on-tone stamp of a wood grain. And then I took a blender brush and shaded in to give it that ombre look. And then I backed my cut file and then cut it out as one whole piece instead of each individual letter. That way the ombre and the whole effect was still in a line and I didn't have to shift the wood grain. Okay, so that is how I did that one. This one here was 2 words that just said love you, and then I went ahead and made it into a giant title that says love going anywhere with you. It's the same concept as the globe and whatnot because I love getting travel pictures of us going because we just have a blast traveling together. We aren't one of those are we there yet people. We do really love this. This one here, I took a one of those Wink Stella, but it's really close to my heart color glitter pens, and I colored the word chef before I put the letters back in, and then the letters I actually did ink with a Tim Holtz ink before just putting them right back in. That way I didn't have to back the cut file, but this glitter helped fill in the gap if there was a small little gap left over from the blade. And then I did pop back this hat in. I put those pieces back in, but I popped them up to give it that fluffy hat look. Okay. So, and then of course these pieces here, I just took wood grain and then I took my pen to outline the spoon and the handle and then I took another pen and colored the whisk. So that way I gave it that colorful look, but it's still all just one cut file, even though it looks like a ton of different elements. All right, this one here, this was the main cut file, which was this half round going on, and I took some tulle and put it inside the stars. That was not fun. I don't recommend that for anybody. But then I took a bunch of birthday cut files that I ended up with, and I took 3 of them. I took the balloons, the word celebrate, and the cake. So I have 4 cut files on this one 2-page layout. But I was just showing how you could take a cut file and merge it with others in order to get, you know, a desired effect, but it just made the layout go together super uber quick. Okay, even though my girlfriend was not pleased that I took those photos. Here is a cut file, and it is a bunch of leaves, and I just used them to decorate my little pockets. Look, I still didn't glue that one in either. I'll have to pull that out. So I've got it on both sides where I've used all the little leaves to help me fill in my little clusters, my embellishment clusters. Okay. So there is a pocket page. Here's another one where I took a bunch of film strips, and I actually, because it was a big one, and instead of using it as my focal, I cut it up and put it in all the different places to help me fill in the gaps of all of this. Not that, you know, lemon bars are, you know, photo worthy, but I still think it looks great. I love black and yellow together. This one here, again, a mixed media. I went and I colored my my background, and I chopped it all up. Sorry, I chopped it all up in order to get all the different little things. And that's what the whole point of 31 days is to show you all these different ways to use a cut file. So that way you're not stuck in a rut going, what on earth? This one here, I love that the cut file is barely visible, but it's in all of my clusters. I just chopped it up and put it in all of my clusters and wrapped the leaves around it. So it doesn't have to be the focal point of your layouts. It just does not. Okay, this one here, I actually cut it up into 3. So these little succulents were all around this photo frame, and I cut the succulents off and wrapped them around my photos right here, and then I took twine, variegated twine, and wrapped the picture frame around so I could finish telling my story. Okay, and then on the other side, I forgot, I changed one of these into a 9x12, and I forgot, and so I glued the 8.5x11 to the back of the 9x12. So I don't know why I changed that, but this one here, I actually used the star in the background. I'm not really sure if you can see it, but the star is very, I just used it as a stencil, and you can see little bits and pieces of it. I didn't want it to be totally prominent. Well, then I cut it to where I could use it 2 different spots in my layout. Even though it does kind of blend in, I still have that little star, and actually in person you can really see it. Like really, it does stand out. This one here, I took the cut file. It was a big giant circle. I took the cut file and put it on both sides of my layout, and then my photo in the center, so that way I just had those gears showing to help, again, tell my story. So you don't have to see the whole cut file. This one here, I took the little triangles and I cut them apart and had them go straight up instead of in the border that they were. I just cut them off of each other and pushed them up even further. So I made the cut file work for me, and then of course I just added punched in stars. Now here's a common thing that some people do with the cut files is they turn them into shaker pockets. So I took this one, again, it was in a square, and I cut it all up so that way it would wrap around my photos and do what I wanted it to do. So I put it in 3 different spots, but I turned all of these into shakers, so that way I had a little bit of movement on my page. So I have that, and again I just took a shimmer pen and colored in all of my leaves and whatnot so that way they had some sort of sparkle to go with the sequins. This one here I cut up where it said this is our happy place. I took out the word happy and just said this is our place, and took a picture of the start of my gear garden. That's what I call it because my husband loves bringing me home some gears, and so I've got a gear garden going on. But the insides, super simple. Every time that I see something that is usable as another cut file, I try to use it. And so I just took the insides of this cut file instead of backing the cut file, and I ombre'd all of the letters and then put them back in. The easiest way to back a cut file is to just use what you already had, even though you have to basically know exactly where this cut file is going and then put all the pieces back on your layout, instead of having a finished cut file to move around your layout. So that's another disadvantage of putting the pieces back in. Another pandemic layout. This one here is the star going through the layout, and inside here I took all of the points of the star and gave it a 3D effect by using little foam adhesive and popping it up, and all I did was spray it with black spray. I always love cutting my cut files in white because then you don't have to have it sitting on your computer waiting to decide what color you really want it. So if you cut it in white, then you can use all the sprays and different techniques and whatnot if you choose to. And then it can be any color that you would like it to be to match your layout. So there is that one. I've always had people ask me about which, what my, why do I cut everything in white if what I'm going to do is cut it? Well, here's another good example of why I do that, is because here I took my pole and gave it a silver treatment, but yet I kept my street signs all white. And so I did it that way. I don't actually think this was part of the cut files. I used a lot of cut files last year, like a lot, because I was on a design team. So this one I'm not really sure if this was part of, but I wanted to share with that with you guys of why I start out with white, because then I can color it any color that I want and give it that that personality of its own. So there's that one, and I use that as a title. And last but not least, another pocket page for you guys where I took the fresh air cut file, made it part of a giant cluster, title cluster. It says Lakeside Fresh Air, and then did another little embellishment over here with my dead space in the photos. My pelicans only came back for a little bit this year, you guys. I think they got scared off because now we have swans, and I'm not too happy with that. I miss my pelicans. And then of course on the other side I took another giant background one and I cut it apart, took all the inner bits that were whole inner bits, because some of them are whole, and I used it to fill in my clusters. What is that? I don't think you belong there. I used it to fill in my, to help me fill in my clusters, and again, just another cool mixed media background instead of doing actual mixed media. I really like cut files for that. All right, so I hope I gave you guys a quick brief overview of what, not what to expect, but an understanding of what 31 days of cut files is. It just is a cool way to get a lot of inspiration of how to use what seems to be new to a couple people of the cut files. Now, not every single one of them are these huge, intricate cut files where it takes 6 days to back. Some of them are, some of them are not. I try not to pick those out for our 31 days. So that way you get a good introduction, an easy, nice, smooth introduction into cut files. I also offer the pre-cut cut file, so if you do not have a machine, you are more than welcome to join in by purchasing. You do not have to purchase the package in order to play along. You can use ones that you've received in kits. You can use ones that you have purchased along the way. Anything like that. You do not have to use the exact same ones that I use in order to play along. But I just want you guys to you know, feel better or feel more comfortable about how to use a cut file. So that is the gist of 31 days, and I can't wait to get started tomorrow and share with you guys what I'm doing all month long, because I don't think I've played with cut files hardly at all this year. So super excited to play with cut files. Anyways, I will let you get back onto it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I will check you guys tomorrow with what my first cut file. Bye!